Helldivers 2 is full of really cool mechanics. So why do none of them actually matter? The way that this game is designed makes no sense. Everything one-shots you, ragdolls you, insta-kills you, and your weapons just kinda suck. But let's get a little deeper into that. Take the limb breaking system, for instance. When you take damage in a specific limb, it has a chance of breaking. If you break a leg, you can no longer sprint. Breaking an arm makes your aim much worse, and if you break your torso, you basically bleed out in like 5 seconds. In my entire time playing Helldivers 2, I have never been in a situation where I have a limb break and I have to make a choice between stimming then and there or trying to play with that broken limb for a bit so that I can heal when my health falls lower. Why have I never had to make that choice? Well, Helldivers is a game where everything kills you in 2 to 3 hits. So if you ever get hit and break a limb, chances are pretty good you have to heal either way, because otherwise you're going to get one shot next time you're hit. This is an example of one of the many systems in the game that they render completely pointless because of how they built the rest of the game. Design-wise, it doesn't make sense. If enemies dealt half or even a quarter of the damage that they normally do, specifically the smaller ones, I don't think the bigger ones are too out of line for the most part, you might have situations where breaking a limb actually matters, or being at half HP doesn't feel like, oh, I need to heal right away. But we never get that. If your limb breaks, you are already healing. So instead of being a mechanic, it's just a nuisance. Or some HUD that pops up that you barely even notice. And this is my problem with Helldivers 2. Stuff like that is everywhere. It keeps adding things that should create interesting decisions, but the way that they actually implement it, those decisions never actually exist. Take the newest enemy variant, for example. Whenever one of these terminids dies, it leaves behind a cloud of spores that speed up the terminids around them, making them basically impossible to outrun. Now, this is really interesting because historically the bugs have been weak to kiting, so they could have leaned into this and made it so that rather than running away from them all the time, right, these bugs are faster but do less damage and reward you for standing your ground and shooting more. You could bring a bunch of close range weaponry and really make a game out of trying to kill them when they get next to you, because they will, or you could go all out on long range weaponry and do your best to prevent that in the first place. Instead, Arrowhead made it so that these bugs not only are incredibly fast, but also deal the same amount of damage as normal. So now they get to you really quick, and still two-shot you, and it doesn't even end there, because they also hurt you when they explode. So you are heavily punished for trying to melee them. You, in fact, can't realistically do it. So rather than create an interesting enemy sub-faction, they've created something that makes me sit there and go, what was the actual design intention behind this? Because it looks like it's just to make the most annoying enemy that they can. The worst part too about this explosion, other than the fact it slows you for some reason, is that they already made a variant of these bugs that explode on death. So you would think that they'd have two really interesting variants, one that is all about rushing you down, and another that is all about keeping your distance, but no. Instead, they just make everything as annoying as possible. This game has no focus other than how can we make it so that the player dies? Or at least that's what it feels like. And I know that people can solo these missions. I'm not saying that you can. I'm saying, what is the design intention behind how they're making these enemies? I feel like they're not asking themselves that question. They don't go, oh, I want to make a new fun encounter for the players. They instead go, how can we make this encounter annoying? The constant ragdolling, I believe, is a reflection of this. Ragdolling is funny. I do not have a problem getting ragdolled by things like a charger hitting me. Why do they keep adding stuff into the game that is completely unavoidable and knocks you down? Like the ships that the automatons have that will just shoot you from the skybox and ragdoll you. They could have just made these ships deal damage, and they still would have been annoying, they would have been a thing you had to take out, but they wouldn't be so frustrating. The new Bile Titan is the same way. Why did they make an enemy that can keep you on the floor for 5+ seconds at a time, and give it way more health than the normal Bile Titan? I have to ask again, what is the design intention? Is the idea that every individual bug should have a good shot against us in a one-on-one encounter? You need some of the strongest stuff in the game to take out more than one of these at a time, and you just don't have the supplies to do that. And then 5 of them spawn in at a time, and I just have to look at it and go, well, there's nothing to do here but run away. I don't think it's crazy to say that when you are designing a Horde shooter, or a Horde game in general, a single unit of that Horde should not be difficult to take out. Of course, you can have special elite units that are a little bit harder, but by and large, in an isolated one-on-one encounter, you should have to mess up to be dying to these guys, and right now, instead, they're balancing it like this is a fighting game. Like I'm squaring up against the Bile Titan, and this needs to be at least a 60-40 matchup, or they're not happy. It doesn't make sense. What I'd really like to see is a bigger emphasis on weak point gameplay. The ability to take out enemies quickly if you're hitting accurate shots on target, and then the difficulty comes not from killing one individual unit, but from all of them rushing you together and trying to keep your supplies up on top of that. But right now, the game's in a state where they are going out of their way to make sure that you die, rather than death being a consequence of your own mistake, and that just doesn't work. That's not going to be fun. So like, what would I personally like? I think the bugs that are super fast are a great idea. But why do they hit me for half of my health bar, when they're already instantly getting on top of me? Why does killing them slow me down and deal damage? They're already guaranteed to get right next to you. Why does this new Bile Titan ragdoll you instead of doing something like leaving acid on the floor for longer? I would even be completely okay if this acid had a slippery ice effect to it, to make it harder to kite the bugs around. That would make it interesting. It could even deal a little bit of damage, but don't just take away my ability to play the game, make me have to work around stuff. This isn't even getting into all of the issues with durable damage, armor, how it works. Like, God, the armor system could be so cool. We got to see a glimpse of it with the charger leg method, where anti-tank could strip away the armor, and then small arms fire could finish off enemies. That is such a cool design philosophy, because now you can have a dedicated anti-tank user who isn't fully dedicated to killing the enemies, but instead weakening them. That's awesome. Yet they didn't want that. The broken limb system. Theoretically, this would make for interesting choices between healing to top yourself off just in case, or continuing to play out the mission with a broken limb because you want to save the heal. But again, this never happens. Or how about the melee weapons, which I personally loved, but they were never going to be that great. They weren't able to even hit Bile Titans, they couldn't do much against flyers, but against warriors and certain bug strains, melee was actually really good and felt super satisfying. A large part of that was because of a bug. Where melee weapons were dealing damage through armor. And you know what they did? They fixed that bug. Why not just make that a feature of melee weapons? It still takes 6 hits to kill a charger, and you're putting yourself at massive risk. This is the exact risk-reward that you'd want in a game. But instead they have this vision for it that frankly, I don't know what they're actually trying to achieve. They talked about grunt fantasy and this idea that you're just a faceless soldier who's meant to be fed to the hordes, but like, dude, the hordes should feel insurmountable because of their numbers, not because I just don't have the tools to kill them. Compare this to the Warhammer game, which I really like. When you look at a Tyranid swarm in that game, you know that there is no chance you can actually win, quote unquote. You cannot beat the army. So instead your goal is to do any given objective. This lets you have the power fantasy where these Space Marines go in and take out hundreds of Tyranids, sometimes even thousands, but it never makes the Tyranids feel like they aren't a threat. And then if you do make a mistake in Space Marines, the game isn't shy about killing you, but it kills you because you made a mistake, and I feel like that's what Helldivers just doesn't get. It's funny to occasionally die to jank, but when it feels like killing the player is your main goal, actually, who are you designing the game for? Who thinks it's fun to just get killed? Anyway, that's about all I had to say. The design of this game makes no sense to me. There are so many ways that they could improve it, and I would just love for them to try something. Shake it up. Cut the enemy damage in half, but double their spawn rates. Like, I don't even care, dude. Get rid of all the ragdolling and make them actually interesting effects, like the ice sliding thing that I mentioned. Because right now, the majority of the player base is not happy with the game. It's really funny. I was actually making this video before everyone started hating on Helldivers, and I feel like I'm just joining a trend, but yeah, like, I don't know, man. I just want to see this game do well because it has the potential to be amazing. That's about all I wanted to say. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed. If I hit 1,000 subscribers, I can start getting monetized, which means I'm not just doing YouTube for free anymore, and that'd be pretty cool. And yeah, until next time, see ya.
I mean, yeah, Blizzard Entertainment, right?
One of the walkers snuck up on me.
Stimmy!
You're still not stimmable.
I'm gonna die! Stimmy! Blarg.
I'm sorry. Did I pick up the shield generator back of death and despair? What the fuck?